As if they don't have too much on their plates. The Kings of Combat Sports Podcast, John and Wade. They'll talk about the things they did that day. They'll analyze the work of Vince and Triple H. Rewind-A-SmackDown. 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 Rewind-A-SmackDown.
I am fantastic. Jesus. Oh man. Please bear with me, everybody on the YouTube. We are, God, every goddamn week it's something. I basically have to somehow, for some reason, John, your audio is not managing to come through. Please bear with us, everybody. And those of you listening on the podcast feed, this will be perfectly seamless. You will not even notice a thing.
I'm sure this is part of why WWE is enjoying these tapings that they get to do, that they don't have to have that added problem of having to be live for every show any longer.
God damn, you're back. Sorry everybody. Let's try this again, John, so that so that we could just Men in Black ourselves over the past 1 minute. But please, after you.
Well, I'm just excited to be here, as long as I can confirm that I am here.
You are here. You're back.
Well, how are you, Wai? How are you doing now?
I'm doing great. I'm doing really well. Friday, ready to cap this week off so that we can head into the weekend. Some Slammiversary and some horror shows. Some eyeballs being busted.
There's going to be a lot of that. Yes, people are going to be subjected to 4 straight nights of yours truly. Between tonight, Slammiversary, the horror show, which happens to be occurring this year at Extreme Rules, and Raw on Monday night. I always forget Raw. That's always the one that gets tacked on that I don't think of.
Well, I mean, it's definitely the main event. Well, whatever. I don't know.
Did you hear the promo tonight for Raw? A match 15 years in the making between Randy Orton and Big Show. I mean, we have been waiting for this one since the Bush administration.
Yeah. Somebody's been waiting for it. Someone.
15 years in the making.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What? Like, they specifically said 15 years, and I was just kind of curious, like, why is 2005 the point? Like, Orton was called up in 2002. Big Show's been there since 99. I don't know what happened in 2005 that made this. That was when the boiling point.
Was that
began.
when the last time they wrestled?
I have a hard time imagining that was the last time they had a singles match was 15 years ago.
I mean, I can't imagine any other reason why they would say 15 specifically.
Oh, maybe you're right. Maybe.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't know I've been waiting 15 years, but it all comes to a head on Monday. You know what? That sounds really impressive. If you skipped out on Raw this past week, as many probably did, you know what you're saying? Goddamn, I know what I'm doing on Monday night.
As soon as that bell rung in 2005, I said, God, I'm just counting down.
When will this happen again? Like, this was like Masawa Kawada.
Yeah.
Right up until that big headliner at the Tokyo Dome in 2005 for Noah.
How incredible. Yes, of course. Rewind-A-Wai this week, everybody. If you're a patron, you're listening to this right now, you will get that edition of Rewind-A-Wai this coming Tuesday, looking at Noah's Destiny from 2005, their last Tokyo Dome show.
Okay, the last time Randy Orton and Big Show had a singles match. Are you ready for this one?
Yes, I am.
It was on SmackDown on October the 9th, 2018.
2018?
2018. So, Wai, this is 21 months in the making.
Okay. I don't know why it's 15 then. I have no clue. I have no explanation.
Well, maybe it's been simmering. They haven't fully gotten it out of their set. I knew they've had a million singles matches, like a million.
Yeah.
If I counted them, it would add up to a million here as I'm looking. So, shout out to ProFightDB.com for being our rescue blanket here. All right. Well, that's on Monday. That's a long way away. We've got lots coming up this weekend. Before we get to The news. Let's give the shout out for when we're going to be doing segments with the callers tonight, Way.
Well, yes, everybody. We will be taking your phone calls, but we're not going to do that until probably after the news. So once, you know what? Call in now. I'll put you in queue. You're just going to have to be on mute while we go through the news. You're going to have to wait a bit. But afterwards, as soon as you hear this first person get their phone call in, we're going to open up the phone lines. And again, hoping to keep it to topics perhaps more general based, wanted to save some of the SmackDown related stuff in particular for after the show. Yes.
All right. Let's. Did you have a good dinner tonight?
Oh, I had a great dinner. I ate on my porch. It was nice. It's like the weather's been good.
Yeah, the weather has been very nice. I've spent lots of time outside.
Oh, nice, great.
You're a late eater though. Maybe it's because I eat much earlier, but usually I'm bombarding Way with issues, and more than once I'm just sitting down to dinner right now, and you're like a 8:30 eater at times.
No, today was like 7:00. The show started at 8, right? So it was about 7:30.
That's not that late.
Yeah, but usually it was fine. Yeah. When do you eat usually?
Oh, I eat earlier. I eat like 6.
6.
Max goes to sleep at 7.
So don't you get hungry by the time we're done this show?
I'm very good with going for long amounts of time without eating.
Okay.
I'm very good at
snack?
Dealing with.
Do you snack?
I have water. Water preserves you very well. I sound like I'm going through a famine or something like that, but I'm very good at. I can go very long periods of time without food.
Well,
I don't get hungry all that often. It'll hit me once.
Okay.
If I go a ridiculous amount of time.
Well, as long as you're healthy, not starving yourself for any reason. I mean, okay, cool.
No.
Maybe you and I should get blood tests, and just to see where our enzyme levels are.
Yeah, it seems like something hospitals would love right now is for two people to show up without any urgency and to say, "Hey, we're just curious what our health is like."
We got a podcast. We like to just do stuff for banter at the beginning of the first 10 minutes of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Can we get a blood test?
Yes. I asked Way about his dinner, and this is where we ended up at the emergency room wanting blood tests.
We are in Canada, so I guess we could really kind of get away with that even though we should. No.
Well, let's get into let's find out the health of our Wednesday night programs. Following this past week, we had AEW and NXT going up against some notable competition. We had NASCAR competition. We also had a UFC Fight Night card. The UFC Fight Night show. This was not a big card. UFC. This was probably the least watched card during this whole pandemic era, and one of their lowest that they've done on ESPN. They went against the prelims. AEW and NXT did. So the prelims did 434,000 viewers. The NASCAR race, which started at 8:30, did 2,076,000 viewers. AEW had a 10% increase this week in overall viewers with 788,000. They did a 0.29 in the demo, finishing 5th for the night. NXT saw a 17% loss in viewers, doing 631,000, a 30% drop in the demo to a 0.14. So if ever there was a week for Chris Jericho to introduce a t-shirt as the demo god, this was the week to do it, because they more than doubled NXT in the demo. And there were some enormous losses for NXT. This was a very bad week for NXT. In the main demo, we mentioned they were down 30%. Adults 18 to 34, they were down 54.5%. I can't tell you.
That's amazing. That's
54.5%. AEW beat them in that demo, 0.16 to a 0.05. This next one, males 12 to 34, I can't tell you how many times I cross-referenced and made sure this was real and not a typo. AEW did a 0.20. NXT did a 0.02. They fell 85% among men 12 to 34 this week. The Observer had this further breakdown that in men 18 to 34, AEW averaged 70,000, NXT averaged 6,000. Like, this was a terrible week for NXT. Like, this was just a drubbing that they took, where I think with AEW, like, they held up very well. And of the two shows, I thought they might be affected more with the non-NXT competition, but I think it shows that there was Moxley and Brian Cage played a big factor. And with NXT, I mean, they did not take any momentum from the Great American Bash. So, I think just a pretty clear-cut outcome this week is the conclusion.
I was definitely surprised. I think the scale of I suppose dominance here. The Great American Bash certainly were 2 big weeks for NXT, but even prior to those 2 shows, they were doing pretty well. They were beating AEW in overall viewership, and so I really expected. I don't know if I really fully expected them to win this one again, but I at least expected some form of indication that was a trend and not just several weeks of anomalies. But I don't know what it particularly was. Certainly AEW, I think on paper, had the far stronger show, stronger main event even. But the fact that so many people, in particular, males 18 to 49, left NXT to watch either AEW or watch something else or do something else altogether, it was a big surprise to me.
Now, NASCAR does very well with older viewership. I mean, they dominate in those figures.
Is that NXT's audience? Is that like what the dent was here?
Well, it wasn't enough to explain it. Like, over 50 is where NXT does exceedingly well. They fell 7.5% among adults over 50. So you can't just say that's just purely their loss. Like, this was young men that tuned out in incredible figures for NXT this week. I should just say, like, younger people, because it was, adults across the board, but in particular, the younger male audience that fell significantly. Whereas among older viewership, despite having NASCAR, like among 25 to 54-year-olds and over 50, AEW was up in both of those demographics this week, and that is with, a powerhouse like NASCAR. So,
how do you explain this? What are they doing? What are these adults 18 to 49 doing?
I think that
where did they go from watching NXT to, like, it's got to be Hamilton. Got to be. Just a Wednesday, I've heard all these podcasters talk about Hamilton. You know what? Screw this NXT. Screw this AEW. I'm watching Hamilton.
I guess they were more interested in seeing Brian Cage not throwing away his title shot than they were in Tegan Knox.
That's really good. Oh my goodness. For somebody who hasn't even seen it, you really do know these songs.
I do know the soundtrack because I have been exposed to the soundtrack pretty incessantly. So I can at least go with that reference, but that's about it. So there you go. As always, we look ahead to next week, and
what's NXT's response?
Man, Road Wild,
Road Wild, Beach Blast, Uncensored. Bring them all out.
All of the above, yeah. We'll save Fall Brawl for September. They're just gonna have to go through the gamut of WCW events. Unfortunately, Road Wild was one of their worst shows, so I don't know if that would attract or just turn people off. But clearly, it's branded shows for NXT for the time being. But, for UFC, I really feel UFC made almost no difference in any of these numbers. I would look at NASCAR to a degree, but, I mean, this was like a very small-time UFC show where your biggest fight was Kelvin Cater and Dan Ige, and that fight did not end until after 1 a.m. Like, you had a main card of all decisions, so the main card was not starting until AEW and NXT was over. So it's really only the prelims you're looking at, which, I mean, they did an audience, but I don't know if you can just look at it as that being the factor, which, as we've talked about in the past way, when there are other options out there or when there's big news going on, it's typically the AEW side that takes the hit more than NXT. But I mean, this week it was just a clear indication of what the big match was. It was on the AEW side and much more momentum on their side, which is mass times velocity. And this week, AEW had the mass audience and the velocity throughout the 2 hours.
That's what they should be bringing back, that show.
Oh,
Velocity.
that breakdown by Bailey was among my favorite things on SmackDown.
I thought it was great. You know, I know you might have another story to get to, but perhaps we fit a phone call in between these two stories. Okay, because this call... Oh, Jesus, I'm sorry, everybody. Oh, God. All right, hey, caller, are you there? Hey.
Yes, I am. How you doing, Wai?
Hey, who's this?
This is Tom from Barrie, Vermont.
Okay. Hi,
Barrie.
Tom.
You guys actually sent me a video a few weeks ago, and you said it was either John said Bar and Wai Ting said Barrie, and Wai was right. It is Barrie,
Barre, right?
Yes, you're right. Just like Wilkes-Barre.
Got it. Sweet. Nice. Okay, what's up?
Okay. I just got a few quick bullet points I want to go through. First of all, the Moxley cage finish I thought was complete bull. Can I swear on this program?
No, you can't.
No, we're monitored by the CRTC.
Okay. It was Moxley and Cage finish. I thought was BS. It made Cage look weak for Taz throwing the title. He had a perfect opportunity right there when Moxley was giving him the finger. Taz had the FTW belt right in his hand. He should have bashed Moxley in the face and got a DQ and saved his man. Instead, Brian Cage looks like a wuss. I mean, come on. Taz throwing the towel for him. How does that save him?
I disagree. I mean, first of all, I think AEW has been very careful to not do too many of your DQ finishes. And I think in the end it was Taz's action. So how did that make Brian Cage look bad? Cage didn't tap out.
Taz is a tough guy too, though.
Yeah, but that's not the
That was
match.
the cool
That's
thing.
not the match.
I don't know. I just didn't think it made Cage look strong. They should have at least avoided the match if they're, for a little while. He just barely got there.
I don't think it harmed him all that much. I mean, coming out of it, it's AEW wants to give you a finish, and I don't. I prefer that over just how do we book ourselves out of this scenario rather than go with a finish that it's different, but it's an acceptable finish with a towel being thrown in. I think people prefer that than just a DQ after 15 minutes to just get yourself out of a corner.
I really don't think it hurts Brian Cage too. I mean, certainly much of it is in the follow-up, but I would trust AEW to book him strong coming out of this. And let's be honest, I think he's too early to be a champion at the moment, and I think he's probably, even a year away from even those discussions. And in that time, you can do a great deal to build that guy back up. No problem. This was just a way to really establish him onto that main stage.
Yeah, I can see that. But talking about new guys that they're not using right, Brian Pillman Jr. debuted on Dark last week, and they have him lose to Sean Spears, who's basically a jobber at this point. It's like, you got a guy like Brian Pillman Jr., and you're going to make him lose his first match? Like, what's with that?
Do we know that he signed properly?
Yeah, he has signed with AEW. That was his first match on Dark last week.
I don't know what his contract situation is. I mean, he has a deal with MLW, so I don't know what his what his commitments are, but he is able to do AEW, and in theory would be able to continue doing them forward. No MLW dates are going to conflict with Wednesday night shows. I don't look at Dark as necessarily indicative of where they're going to go with him, and I think there's a major difference from when you introduce the character on the main show versus Dark. And I think at this period, it's more just introducing him to your audience.
Did you hear he's teaming up with Enzo on the independent scene, and Enzo still has the cruiserweight belt, and he's taking on tour with them?
Yeah, they're doing an independent show tonight or tomorrow, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
so I guess Enzo's trying to get back in the wrestling biz. The rap career didn't work out.
Perhaps. Thank you for the call. Got to move the show along.
Thank you, Wai. You're always on top of things. All right. Any more calls?
Let's get to the story first, and then if there are any
Okay.
calls, we'll put people on hold. The problem is like with the phone line, I can't put them on hold. So okay, whatever.
So we only have one other story here, and this was a feature that the New York Times put out on Friday by Eric Margolis called "The Fall of Terrace House," and a lot of it is focused on the story of Hana Kimura that we've gone over, but some other interesting notes here. Some of the highlights included Kyoko Kimura, who has filed a complaint with the Broadcasting Ethics and Program Improvement Organization regarding Terrace House's contribution to Hana's death and how she was presented on the show. They cite 3 anonymous cast members who said that they, quote, aggressively dictated how some interactions should unfold and how some participants should act on the show. There were other cast members that disputed claims of manipulation. And we should add that beyond Kai Kobayashi, the other cast members that were speaking out about the show, pretty much all of them spoke anonymously because of these NDAs that are in place, other than a few that were named that were more so talking about the positives of being on Terrace House. They also talked about messages that Hana had sent to a friend of hers going over the conflict and that it was fake, but she's not allowed to talk about this regarding the episode called The Costume Incident. They had representatives from Fuji TV that had denied any events being staged on the show, as well as the president of Fuji TV saying that the show only depicts scenes that accurately represent the feelings of the cast member. And an interesting part of this article, Way, was also just like the culture that has come out of the fandom of those watching Terrace House, and that a lot of these cast members, they all agree about the harassment that they received online from these attacks from fans. And in Japan, since Hana's death, there's been a proposal about policing cyberbullying that could, in theory, disclose names and personal information about who these people are posting it. But the article points out like the larger systemic issues in Japan, where you have high suicide rates, high levels of bullying, and yet there's very limited access to mental health care resources. And that's an interesting angle to look at all of this, of just the culture in Japan where mental health does not seem to have the kind of support necessary that this is a big problem just for this show, and I'm sure it's a much more widespread issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought the article did a really good job of kind of encapsulating a lot of the major issues that have stemmed from this particular incident over the past month or 50-something days. I also wanted to mention how, much of the information that was here has also been translated by, previously on Twitter by Farah Hasnain, who actually was quoted in this particular NY Times article. So she continues to do some just absolutely great, service for English speaking audiences as it relates to this particular story. But the many issues that are attached to this, it is rather complicated, because it's at the heart of it, of course, is this reality show and the role of the manipulation of this reality show and the blame that ultimately you might place on them for creating this situation. But also on top of that is the state of mental health and how it is looked at in the culture of Japan. The topic of cyberbullying and how audiences react. What is the responsibility of the show's producers, knowing that they're subjecting their audience to that? What is the responsibility of a show that bills itself as unscripted and as reality in creating a type of outrage from its audience that, unlike professional wrestling, does not see what they look at as a performance? They think about it because the show is claiming to be without a script, that these are the real actions of the people that are attached. So a lot of questions that I really, it's going to take a lot of work to really institute, I think, change on a grand scale. But Kyoko Kimura, God bless her, somebody who's going through just the most unimaginable pain a human being can possibly go through. She's using that energy to try to institute some sort of change. And really just to, seek some sort of vengeance for why this happened to her child. She's made some TV appearances as well in Japanese, but from the gist of it, it sounds like a lot of it is, some of the material that she's been talking about in the articles that she's recently released as well. But just, it's one thing to read it, but it's another to kind of like see the look on her face as she's going through talking about all this stuff. It's, again, a heartbreaking story, but God, like a story that makes you really hope, something will come out of it for the better. And, we shall see, yeah.
Yeah. Just some other closing notes from the article. I mean, they talked about how when Hana first got onto the show, she was enjoying her time on there, but it quickly changed once she started to get all these, attacks online, and specifically being attacked because she is half Indonesian and became a target for this with just racist content that was thrown her way. And her mother said that she was contemplating leaving the show as recently as late November, that she was looking to get out. The episode in question, it first aired on Netflix March 31st and then aired on Fuji TV May 18th, which is an important date because that was days before she died. So it almost was like reliving all of this. And she was living alone. This was during the...
Jesus Christ. Oh, excuse me, everybody. Technical issues continue, everybody. Apologies. Let me just try to get John back on here.
Hello.
Sorry about that, John. Please continue.
That's okay. So anyway, Kyoko has been very critical of Fuji TV, East Entertainment, the production company, as well as Stardom. And she's now trying to launch a nonprofit in Hana's memory that will help with victims of cyberbullying. So I think Kyoko really is the hero of this in terms of someone that is trying to make sure that there are not more instances of this occurring. And just the fact that this was something that seemed to be a pretty unifying theme among cast members on Terrace House. And I would not just say this would be exclusive to Terrace House people, but probably a lot of celebrity culture. And you can look at that worldwide. But this to me is it's you can look at the micro example of what happened on Terrace House, but also at the macro level of where cyberbullying is and the complicated procedure of trying to police that and trying to police anything on the web. But it's at least someone is trying to do something about it.
It's part of the reason why I think so many people commented on this story, both in the professional wrestling world and really elsewhere. You know, in particular, the women in professional wrestling commenting. I mean, not just people who knew Hana Kimura, but people who could relate to the type of abuse that this person might get on a regular basis. And women, I'm sure, get it far worse than the men. And you have to be very strong in order to handle, I think, a barrage of that. And some people just, God, can't. So, yeah, the hope is that some good comes out of this.
So if you want to check out this article, it is on the New York Times site. It's a pretty thorough article when it comes to all the key points of the story. If you've not kind of gone through all the details, but it's a really well done article.
All right, screw the phones. We'll try getting it at the end of the show, but I'm not taking any more risks right now. So maybe we should just go to whatever's next, John.
Okay, we're going to dive right into SmackDown, and then at the end, we'll also do a preview of Extreme Rules, and if luck is on our side, we will attack the phone calls once again. But let's go into SmackDown. This was done today at the Performance Center, so we had new set of tapings here. And we started things off with almost like a nod to Saturday night's main event with just a series of promos off the top, teeing up the key elements of the show. Starting off with AJ Styles addressing the barefoot bum Matt Riddle. And if you forgot that Matt Riddle doesn't wear shoes, these next 2 hours, we're going to remind you about this very definable trait of Matt Riddle.
He is the guy without shoes. Yeah.
Yes, that is the key.
I think
that's the first line in the bio.
Instead of the match graphics, they just got to have a photo of him with his bare feet. Just his bare feet.
Yeah, like the tail of the tape with his theoretical shoe size.
All right.
Matt Riddle said, AJ said that he only lost to Riddle due to the element of surprise. Tonight, no surprise, no shoes, and no chance for Matt Riddle. Riddle counters saying, what does AJ stand for anyway? Arrogant jackass? Well, tonight Riddle is going to show that he is the bro that runs the show.
Oh my goodness. Arrogant jackass.
Yeah, I think the Pulitzer was in the background for Matt Riddle.
I know they're definitely pushing him as a babyface. Now, what type of babyface are they pushing him as? Because this type of joke is not certainly the type of babyface you would be like, man, that guy's cool. This is not The Rock. This is not the Steve Austin type of babyface. Is this more like dumb jock? Dumb? Is he just a dumb guy? Is that what they're going for?
Listen,
Matt Riddle,
we got a
guy?
we got a whole segment not all that long ago with Otis and Mandy Rose that was a complete nod to Fast Times at Ridgemont High. So that may very well be the character direction of Matt Riddle, if 1982 is our framework.
He's just he's the idiot who wrestles really well.
Yeah, he's like the dude the bro that can go.
Yes.
Without shoes. Then we had Daniel Bryan, who tonight took the time out to shoot 2 videos on his phone to send in. They are bound and determined. SmackDown cannot occur without Daniel Bryan's presence.
Well, I mean, I feel like he is still the ultimate destination for AJ Styles. It seems like AJ continued to make mention of him last week, and if he was pulling an extended absence, I don't think they would have his presence on the show. So he was in the woods here.
Yeah, I mean, we got to see Scott Stanford's backyard as always, and now we got to see Daniel Bryan in either his backyard or some nearby park.
Mm-hmm.
And then Alexa Bliss teed up her mystery guest, but who is it? I don't bliss and tell. And then we had Miz and Morrison talking about Jean-Claude Van Damme and Morrison beating him up on a yacht. They're going to face Braun, or Morrison's going to face Braun tonight. And Braun says the horror show at Extreme Rules starts tonight, and he hopes Bray is watching as he gave a maniacal laugh. And it ends with Nakamura and Cesaro teeing up that they will get to choose the stipulation for Extreme Rules after tonight. And we cut to New Day doing a live promo right before they walked out to the ring for our opening match. I like the concept of this, starting things off and boom, kind of all the key characters on the show and what you're hopefully going to answer over the next 2 hours. I like the idea of this.
I liked it a lot. I thought it was, like you said, a throwback to things like Saturday night's main event. It was just dudes cutting quick one-line promos on their opponents. The only thing that was missing were their individual logos in front of the green screen backgrounds. Man, please bring those back. Those are
that would be great. But yeah, this was a good start. This to me is way more creative than just simply starting the show and we go to matchup boards of all the key segments that are coming up. This was from their mouth, what they're fighting for tonight or what their storyline is, and they laid out 5-6 different things here.
Allows the wrestlers to showcase their personalities, tells you what the grudges are, tells you what they are fighting for this evening, tells you the card. And, as always, it just feels way more natural, I think, for a wrestler to be talking straight to the camera rather than try to, read lines for an interview.
Our first matchup was Big E against Cesaro. And I guess So they explain this, okay? I'm gonna try and convey this, that there was a vote on what the stipulation should be, but the vote was too close to call. So this is gonna be a tiebreaker match.
Who's voting?
I have no idea. But it was exactly 50-50 for the tables match and the cage match. We couldn't find one more voter. So instead, we have to have a pro wrestling match to determine the final deciding vote.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I guess that does make sense, you know.
Sure.
Like if you, we're going to have a stipulation match. Well, you probably want something and I want something else.
So this week's armbands, we had Kofi Kingston representing Ezell Ford, a 25-year-old that died from gunshot wounds after being shot by two LAPD officers in August of 2014. It was later ruled that one officer was justified in shooting while the other officer was not, but neither would face criminal charges. Big E, who always has two on, one was for Jamel Roberson, who was a 26-year-old security guard that was shot by a police officer who was responding to a call after shots were fired at the bar that Roberson was a security guard for. Roberson had subdued and pinned down the shooter, who had already shot 4 people in the bar. And it said here, witnesses stated that Roberson was wearing a vest that had the word security printed on it. And then an Illinois State Police, officer here, came in, and the ISP report stated that the officer gave Roberson multiple verbal commands to drop his gun and get on the ground, while witnesses said the officer shot Roberson not even 5 seconds after ordering Roberson to drop the gun he had in his hand.
Wow.
I find these stories each one is it's shocking, and the volume of them. And then the other arm was for Akai Gurley. And this one is just they're all awful. 28-year-old man who was fatally shot in November of 2014. Okay. 2 police officers were patrolling stairwells. This was in a New York housing authority. They entered a pitch dark, unlit stairwell, and one of them, Officer Peter Liang, had his firearm drawn. Gurley, who was with his girlfriend, entered the stairwell 14 steps below them, and the officer fired his weapon, and the shot ricocheted off a wall, fatally striking Gurley in the chest, and a jury later convicted the officer of manslaughter, which a court later reduced to criminally negligent homicide. So those are your 3 stories this week.
Yeah, it seems like it's limitless.
And so we move to the match. It's never a very good transition from those to the wrestling match. But as I say each week, I think it's very noble that they continue to have these. And I will usually spend the first 6 minutes of the match just trying to be able to get a good look at the wording. And then as I finally find it, that's usually when Big E tweets out the names, and then I see them anyway. But I never know when he's going to tweet out the names, so I'm trying to find them. It's these you really notice the camera angles when you're trying to just get a shot of his arms.
It's really difficult, yeah, because the writing is wrapped around the arm,
and you never get a long glance. It's like cut, 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 cut. You just got to be real quick to try and pick up the words.
Mm-hmm.
So they have their match here. There's the advantage on Big E by Cesaro. Cesaro stops a spear off the apron. Big E then applies a stretch muffler, and Cesaro is able to escape that with a sunset roll-up, and then from there goes to the Cesaro swing into the sharpshooter and transitions to a crossface. Meanwhile, Nakamura attacks Kingston on the floor. Big E powers up on Cesaro, tries for the big ending, and almost knocks over referee Jessica Carr, who has to duck and get out of the way, and with her back turned, Nakamura hits an enziguri on Big E, setting up the neutralizer, and Cesaro wins. And as Cesaro and Nakamura go for the tables, Kofi leaps over them, sets up the table, puts Cesaro on the table, but Nakamura rescues Cesaro, and they bail up the ramp and leave. And later on, we will find out what this match will be. What are they going to choose after our third consecutive week of table usage? I guess it's harder to bring out a steel cage from under the ring and attack them with that. But the drama would be answered. It would be coming to a climax later.
You know, I like both guys here, but I thought this was just a match. Very standard, very solid, but just pretty forgettable TV.
Kayla was with King Corbin. What do you think he made fun of Matt Riddle for? His lack of shoes, and says it's the honeymoon phase right now for Riddle, and he's playing with fire, and he's going to get burned. The bro is nothing but a little boy. And then as we went to the graphic for AJ and Matt Riddle, my God, do I hope that this is not the new WWE main roster nickname for Matt Riddle. But Cole identified him as the bodacious barefoot bro.
That's going to be on the WWE.com previews, I think.
If they have to call him this every time, the bodacious barefoot bro.
You know
Triple
that's
B.
You know it's the same dude who came out with the Dreadlock Dynamo.
Yes, which thankfully had a very short shelf life. I don't know if this is much better. Cesaro and Nakamura say we're finally getting the respect, and Cesaro just can't go along with the idea of New Day gyrating next to a steel cage, and therefore it felt so great putting them through tables that the two of them choose the tables, and by announcing this, they do so by saying the stipulation in unison with one another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was adorable. They're like twins.
These two don't need the green screen to feel right out of 1987.
I don't know.
That's what
about
this
that.
felt like. This felt like your classic, your
Those promos
foreign
were way-
heels
No,
that
those
have a
promos-
dastardly plan by using tables.
Those promos are way better than these. I love both of them as wrestlers. I think these suck. I think they're just so bland, so nothing. The match is not that much of a draw to me. I'm sure the match will be good. It has even the potential to steal the show, but it's tough for me to get excited for like a third meeting between these two teams, and a table stipulation isn't going to do much to change that.
Then we had the Moment of Bliss with Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. They mentioned it's the 5th anniversary of the women's evolution, where boundaries were broken and glass ceilings were shattered. Because this is your history lesson. 5 years ago, a bill was passed in government that allowed WWE to properly present female talent. And it had been, this law had been preventing WWE for generations from doing this until 2015. But thankfully, that boundary was broken 5 years ago when the company decided, let's do this better.
Yeah. They've been trying to make a big pitch like this week of trying to celebrate this anniversary of, I mean, essentially the debut of Charlotte, Sasha Banks, and Becky Lynch to the main roster. That is like, and I guess that's the Stephanie promo, really. That is the big history-making moment that began this whole thing. Stephanie McMahon coming out and announcing that we are about to have a women's evolution. And 5 years, I guess, to the week that occurred. I don't know, a pretty arbitrary point, I suppose, to pick, and I guess just a way to really celebrate them taking women's wrestling seriously.
I mean, if you're just going to look at WWE, I think you could certainly look at that very first takeover show with Emma and Paige. Like that was,
they would never recognize something like that.
But I mean, that was the one where you came out of that and it's like, it was just night and day what NXT is doing and what their audience would take to that was just, it was a tremendous match. And to me, that was what really set those early takeovers was that match, and what grew from that with Charlotte and Natalya at the later that year, just a few months later, and what grew out of that particular match. But
yeah, I guess that, like, if you're gonna pick, an in canon WWE moment, that I suppose that promo is as good a moment as any to choose.
which also means it's the 5-year anniversary of the debut of the Submission Sisters.
The submission sorority.
Oh,
Yeah.
I always screw that one up. The Submission Sorority. The 1 week named Submission Sorority. So then Alexa decides to make some predictions because she is Blisstrodamus. She predicts the LA Lakers will win the NBA championship, and the NXtras booed this. Matt Riddle will win the IC title tonight, and Braun is going to win in the Wyatt Swamp fight. I think there's a very good shot of her going 0 for 3 when all is said and done about all of these. And her mystery guest is going to tear the roof off the place this Sunday, which is literally impossible. And she's a bit unconventional. Nikki thinks she's the guest, and she cuts a promo about how she can do it on Sunday and beat Bayley. Alexa calms her down, asking her, how many nitro brews did you have today? And this was met with silence, and it was extremely awkward.
Yeah, not that, like, coffee humor is not the type of humor for the NXT crowd, I guess.
Bayley and Sasha come out. Banks calls Nikki a hyper chihuahua, and then Bayley, I don't know if she was trying to butcher the nickname or this was the best that was coming out. She called her Bliss Trot Amos.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Something like that. They want the credit for the women's evolution. Then the actual guest is Asuka, and this sets up an impromptu tag match. This was quite the process to get to this tag match.
Yeah, I mean, they were teasing, a special guest for a Moment of Bliss all day, and she made her debut here. No mention of this, like, what is it, special, like, hall pass? Like, what do they call that? Special privilege.
Yeah, you're right. This would technically be a brand crossing, which until you brought it up, I didn't even think about it.
Oh yeah, there's no mention of it anymore, and who cares at this point? It just surprised me, like with a Raw guy and a SmackDown guy, whatever. Nobody.
Is this
cares.
One of those times a year they're allowed to do this? Does this count?
I don't know.
She came over. She had a match. I mean, this was pretty.
I imagine
blatant.
there was some extensive paperwork Alexa had to fill out to get this done.
Right.
She even got to wrestle. So
I know. It wasn't just an appearance.
Yeah.
Riddle was warming up with Drew Gulak, and we go back to Daniel Bryan on his phone and said a great champion doesn't coast, they push themselves, and Styles has been forced to become a fighting champion, and he could be the greatest champion ever if he embraces the opportunity, and he sees the fire and intensity from Matt Riddle, who has a special coaching session tonight, which I guess referenced our B-roll from a moment ago with Riddle and Gulak, because there was no further follow-up to this.
Didn't he say like a special coaching session in the woods or something?
I thought you just said tonight. I don't know if Riddle was going out in the woods, especially barefoot. He's barefoot.
Yes.
Bayley and Sasha against Asuka and Nikki Cross. I feel like Bayley and Sasha, like these tag matches, they very much have their pattern, and it's fine. I don't think
every tag match in the WWE has its pattern.
Well, this one is like we build up to the hot tag, then we build up to another hot tag, and then we build up to another hot tag, depending on how much time.
That's every match.
Well, it's a bit of an odd formula. They double teamed Cross forever, then they double teamed Asuka forever, and one of our commercial breaks saw Bayley and Sasha laid out on the floor. So Asuka and Nikki Cross danced together on the desk together.
I actually like these personalities together. I think both of them are incredibly intense, and like as these two really kind of off the wall personalities, they kind of work well.
Well, maybe if Asuka ever needs a new partner, this could be the creation of Oscross.
Oscross. Okay.
Cross hit a tornado DDT off the desk to Bayley. Banks broke it up. Then Asuka got kicked to the floor after missing a hip attack. Banks missed with the Meteora to the floor and took a head kick. Bayley then drop kicked Asuka, knocking her down, blocked Nikki's tornado DDT, and then used the middle rope for leverage to pin Nikki. Once again, this was the second time Nikki has been pinned by Bayley going into Extreme Rules. And the story is like Nikki has blown it multiple times. Is she going to blow it now in the title match? Which I would think she is, unless they're really going to just surprise everybody on Sunday. But I mean, the way this is going, this is very much, I think, trying to play reverse psychology with people to believe Nikki's winning this title after these losses.
She could be. Yeah.
I guess if you feel like Bayley,
they're telling a self-confidence story with Nikki Cross that has been a little bit subtle, but they did, in the final segment of this show, really spell it out for you. And so she had to suffer these 2 losses in order to, have that kind of confidence thing. Will it mean that she has a bigger chance of winning? Certainly they have to do something. They can't just have her get squashed. They're going to have to at the very least have her be competitive, if not even perhaps win. I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, we'll go over the card at the end. Miz is trying to calm John Morrison down for his match with Braun Strowman, and they liken it to a horror movie where Morrison is the hero who has to slay the monster. Morrison says, well, every horror movie, the hero has a best friend who can step up and be even more heroic when the hero is not fully ready. And Miz is not much of a horror guy. Then we had our 15-year in the making match for Orton and Big Show coming up on Monday. And then the Firefly Fun House dissolves to Bray at the swamp. And he talks about rattlesnake skins being the same color as leaves. Braun was a lost sheep looking for a home, and Bray gave Braun a purpose. And I want to applaud the editor of this feature that did an amazing job of getting Wyatt family highlights, where it wasn't like they just isolated Braun with Bray. There was Eric Rowan all over these, but there was no 4th Wyatt family member in any of these shots.
Oh, yes.
It was quite amazing how they just had, he was never in any of these shots, but Rowan was all over the place. He said, this is where darkness comes to life and the devil comes to dance. An evil place. Once you enter, you can never truly leave, and a part of you will live here forever. Brought to you by the Tourism of Florida Board. He knows the monster he created is waiting to come home and still lives within Braun and isn't capable on his own with the gifts that Bray gave him. Braun didn't embrace the monster within, so now Bray must destroy the monster Braun has become. Come home, Braun.
Mm-hmm. Maybe not the most captivating promo, but I thought at least it made sense, which is more than I can say for, your typical old style Bray promo. And as a way of bringing back classic Bray here to speak, I thought the editing helped, moved it along, and he told a relatively simple to understand story.
And then Morrison was out for the match with Braun, and Braun came out and said that he's got to grow up and face his fears this Sunday and walk through the gates of hell and slap the devil himself in the face. And I do not have it in me to escalate to the next volume that he did to scream out the rest of this. The only way he knows how to end it is to face his fears, because the last thing he wants is Bray Wyatt to become the Fiend, because it represents everything evil in Braun, and he must end Bray before the Fiend ends him. This was quite the screaming promo from Braun. But at the end of it, I mean, there is a story here that if he cannot, I guess, murder Bray in a swamp, then the Fiend's coming and Braun's fucked.
Mm-hmm, yeah. I thought it was an interesting choice to have Braun scream all this, almost like in a panic, rather than, I would say, perhaps more heroically just state it in a calm way.
This was the guy that when this feud started was the one just smiling at Bray and that I'm not playing your games and falling for your bullshit. He's had quite the ride over this past month.
Mm-hmm. Well, I thought rather than perhaps the intent, which was to make Braun seem I don't know, angry and like he's really going to want to beat Bray Wyatt up. It instead made him come across almost like a scared, panicked little boy, which, wasn't even didn't even feel serious. Instead, it kind of made me want to laugh because here's the visual.
Oh, it was super goofy.
Here's a visual of a giant being scared of like a guy who might potentially
destroyed this guy in the match, the Money in the Bank that they just aired last week.
He's scared of the guy that he beat up putting on a mask. So,
but that was level 1. That was level 1 Bray Wyatt. Now he's taking on level 2, and he does not want to go to level 3.
Well, I mean, not to mention, it's like it's tough to cheer for a guy who is scared. Like any sort of like babyface heroic champion, you want them to not back down from a challenge. And here's a guy in Braun Strowman who wants to do everything he can to not have the most difficult challenge possible. And I think the justification is that Braun says, everything he went through, like all the wrong he's done in his life is somehow embodied by what the Fiend represents, and he can't possibly face that horror again. But I really have to say I think that level, that depth of storytelling is far from Braun Strowman's strong suit, and it's far from this WWE's strong suit when they're trying to craft these types of promos and these performances from him. So in the end, 1 week away or several days away now from having this match, I definitely don't feel any sort of severity, at that level for this match. For sure, we're going to get at SummerSlam, very likely, Braun Strowman versus The Fiend. They have another month to really drive this thing up to get it to that, horror movie level. Can they do it? Maybe, but by that point, it'll have been like 3 months of this entire program. And, we'll see if we have the patience for it by then.
Braun destroyed John Morrison, just splash, head and arm choke, power slam, and destroyed him in 1:47, which is, for what they're doing with Braun is kind of what this had to be rather than some 50-50 affair that he just goes back and forth. That was it. It just like destruction of John Morrison.
Yeah,
Braun
nothing wrong with that at all. For me, it was just the promo beforehand that I felt was really, I think, I don't know, not very constructive.
I think that it's like it to me it was very campy, but it's at least giving you like what is at stake on Sunday, even though that's very hard to define. Of what is the objective here? It's to end Bray Wyatt, whatever that means.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe he's going to take his eyes out. Braun hopes that Bray is watching. He's coming home, and Cole says he's going to exorcise the demons in his life. And he said this so casually with the same urgency of tonight's episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. He's going to exorcise the demons in his life on Sunday in the second hour. A stretcher came out for John Morrison, but it was Miz helping him, and Morrison was showcasing numbness in his fingers from this power slam.
Yeah, much of this was obviously to promote Braun and his incredible dominance, but I almost got the sense that they're telling a bigger story here with Morrison and Miz, and it was all of a sudden incredibly serious, after seeing Miz and Morrison really throughout this entire run be these comedy guys. You had a moment of like, manufactured concern, but nonetheless, I thought it was like that same treatment that they would give to, like the announcers weren't saying much, and it was like treating this as if it was like a serious injury.
Lacey Evans came out and literally got on the microphone to confirm she's a heel. And Naomi...
Yeah, like, what the hell? Like, no explanation, no even transition of character. We're just picking right up as if like the last 5 months never happened for her.
You've never lost a karaoke showdown in your life. So
true. You
can't speak to, forget about the dark place in Braun's life. Think of what these last 7 days have been like for Lacey Evans to live down the loss in this karaoke showdown when she was given With My Baby Tonight and blew it.
It's true. Yeah. It would be enough to make anyone snap.
This was it. If she becomes this great heel fixture, this will be the origin point of this heel run. Naomi did this move where Lacey was seated in the corner. So Naomi slid on her knees across the ring to slap her.
You get some momentum from that knee slide, don't you? I mean, in the end, some wrestling moves are just there because they look cool, right? What about Christian slingshotting himself over the ropes to slap a dude in the face?
Evans then grabbed her by the hair, and she tied her hair to the rope. And Naomi, just tears her hair off of this and goes right into a woman's right and is pinned in 2 minutes and 43 seconds.
Hey, I like this. It was a quick little match, but I would say it was more memorable than a great deal of the matches that took place tonight. And primarily because you had a finish that was a little different and creative. And you know what? Not exactly illegal either. Who says you can't tie somebody's hair into the ropes to distract them? I thought it was a good variation to your typical heel distraction finish.
Yeah, this has to lead to a no rope.
No hair match.
Explosives match.
No extension match.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No extensions. All right. Kayla was with Jeff Hardy and asked him about all the tasteless aspects of this angle and asked, why are you risking your sobriety for this match with Sheamus? What a question.
Goodness.
Hardy said, and this was how he rationalized it, battling Sheamus is like battling addiction. Go on, Jeff. You can't run or hide or wish it away. You have to accept the truth, plant your feet on the ground, and fight it every day. Quote, yes, it's risky to walk into a bar with Sheamus, but it's worth it to try and shut him up. And then Kayla follows up by asking who his prediction is for the Intercontinental title match tonight, to which Hardy just lets out this sigh.
No,
says,
Terry.
Kayla, no. I was framed for drunk driving, and it cost me being in that tournament. And then he's hit with the brogue kick out of nowhere, and down goes Jeff, and Sheamus appears, not by Skype, but in living color. And he says, you can't run or hide from it. I will cleanse you of your demons. See you on SmackDown next week, which, folks, your weekend plans have been thrown out the window because the bar fight is not happening Sunday. It's going to be on TV next week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, was this?
This might have been
15 years in the making.
I think 30. I believe that the Braun Strowman thing was the goofiest thing I saw tonight, but this was a different level of just like the fact that this all was performed with straight faces by Kayla Braxton and Jeff Hardy is a credit to the two of them.
Oh God, it's totally weird. Like, I just imagine like Jeff Hardy going home and having dinner with his family, and the kids are like, "What'd you do today, Dad?" At work. I'm
battling Sheamus, which is a lot like battling addiction. You can't run or hide away from it. You've just got to accept the truth, plant your feet on the ground, and fight it each day.
Yeah. Wait, what happened to that drunk driving thing, by the way? Are we just to assume that it was Sheamus?
We are definitely led to assume that, and that the Florida authorities are not digging any deeper into the questionable methods that led to a hit and run.
All right. Okay. Well, we're getting another match destined for TV instead of a pay-per-view.
Which seems to be the pattern that we're seeing on both shows.
Yeah. So I think that, rules out this potentially being any sort of like cinematic match. I mean, they haven't done one of those yet on TV.
This does feel, though, I mean, the fact he did say walking into a bar to face Sheamus, it seems like you almost have to do more than just the ring setup to look like a Guinness backdrop.
True. Right.
So, I mean, this could be shot maybe on location somewhere, and they air it next week. But I have no issue with this being saved for TV. Why not?
I think everything's pretty interchangeable now, especially for these B-level shows, even for like your big shows, like big pay-per-views. What the argument is, which one is more valuable to you right now? Making sure that you have people watching that pay-per-view or people watching SmackDown.
Yeah. Yep. I think those that are watching Extreme Rules are watching it, whether this match was happening or not. Like, that's Extreme Rules. Like, the network subs are not fluctuating up and down, I think, all that much over an Extreme Rules match. So why not save this for TV? Might as well. Bayley and Banks are backstage again with Kayla. And Kayla's question was, after tonight's win, will this momentum continue on Sunday? Bayley's response was, yes. And then goes on to define what momentum is. It is mass times velocity. And points out that her 2 titles means she has more mass than Nikki, and therefore literally has more momentum than Nikki. It's freaking science.
Oh God, I thought this was great. So great. I mean, it's no Scott Steiner
This explanation
math,
was like 10 years in the making.
10 years in the making.
WWE has constantly relied on momentum to explain everything. That here we got an actual breakdown of momentum from Professor Bayley.
Oh, finally, yeah. So, okay, yep, it makes sense. I loved it. It was along the lines of, your Scott Steiner promo. I thought it was really clever.
They then made fun of Nikki and said that she will whine and cry herself into a state of depression and go back to being a chimney sweep. And they cackled as they walked off. And we cut to Bliss and Cross, who are watching SmackDown on a Friday night. And Nikki is all down. She blew it last week. She blew it this week. Bliss is trying to tell her she's not going to blow it on Sunday. And Cross says, Alexa, you're my best friend, but you and me don't get the same opportunities. All my friends and family are watching in Scotland, and my confidence is shaking. And says, the only horror show will be if I lose on Sunday. And then she sees Bayley, who's just come out of nowhere. This was very close proximity. So she just runs and attacks this woman from behind, and they have to be separated. And that is our final angle between Nikki and Bayley, with Nikki's confidence in question.
I mean, those lines about her confidence were some of the most like depth-filled lines I think we've had from that character throughout this entire thing. So part of me, wonders why they didn't spend more time throughout the month telling that story. But I'm also thinking more about it now, in that her saying that her losing will be the horror show. I mean, I think she's probably going to lose and then tell that story, leading to some sort of potential breakup with her and Alexa, which I would actually think would be a long time coming. So perhaps they are going to use this loss to Bayley to springboard a bigger Nikki Cross story and a potential heel turn.
That's where I think this is going, that Nikki loses, and that is good. What we talked about, like giving this character some more depth, where she kind of spirals out, and kind of that line with Alexa of, you and I don't get the same opportunities. Mm-hmm. And that Nikki, it's like, this isn't just one loss. This was my only shot at the title. You have gotten numerous opportunities over the years, and this was all I got, and I blew it. So I think you could actually go somewhere here. And so I don't see her winning the title on Sunday, but I think that it doesn't have to be a negative either, that they could spin off and have an interesting story. Because I think Nikki's a very strong character, strong potential for a character, and someone that I think doesn't get enough promo time, because whenever she's showcased like a very strong ability.
I just wish, like, everything she was saying about her friends and family watching at home in Scotland, I wish we could see that. I wish we could get that big, like, video of her talking about her family. Just give me like an interview and then some B-roll of like her parents at home shooting a cell phone video saying, "Oh, we're cheering for you. Like, look at the big room we have of all your family. We're watching." Like, just give me a bit more attachment so that the moment she does lose, it's that much more heartbreaking, and you do understand why she's so upset.
Well, maybe they'll get them on Zoom on Sunday.
Well, I mean, what good is that? Like, isn't the point to get you interested in the match? before the match?
Wait, we've got a show on Sunday where the main event title match is going to tell you the stipulation 10 minutes beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to tune in. Maybe the whole match, the family will be on the big screen watching as Nikki fails.
Maybe.
AJ and Matt Riddle, main event for the Intercontinental title. We had a series of gut wrenches here from Riddle. Styles got all frustrated. He's banging at the desk, and Riddle starts mocking him. After our first commercial break, Michael Cole gave us some of the background of Matt Riddle, and this is like an ancient art form that Matt Riddle has a background in. Are you familiar with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Jiu-Jitsu.
Yes, it's different from the gentle art. This directly conflicts with the gentle skin. That is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yes.
Styles is in control. Riddle comes back with a front kick, and he hits his Broton, PK, the bro to sleep, the power bomb, and then a knee strike. A lot of offense here, all for a 2 count. We go through a second commercial break. He missed the floating bro. AJ then lifts him for the Styles clash, but Riddle holds on to the rope. AJ hit him with this brain buster into the ring, follows that with the Ushigoroshi, and Styles working on his neck. The cutaways they had to the NXtras who were just looking like, oh my God, did this guy just kill Matt Riddle? He sets up for the phenomenal forearm. It gets stopped, goes for the bro Derek. It's blocked. And then AJ catches Riddle's kick, puts on the calf crusher. Riddle tries to turn it into the bro mission, but Styles fights out, rolls into a cradle, and catches Riddle with the 3 count. So Styles retains the title.
Mm-hmm. I thought they were starting to head into their next gear as they were about to finish, but for a TV match, I thought they peaked at a pretty satisfying level. I enjoyed the match. I enjoyed the clean finish. I loved that transition from the calf crusher into the bro mission. It was really nice. I mean, when you really think about it, the calf crusher pretty much leaves you very susceptible to a back take, and transitioning to that twister was very clean, very, very technical. I thought for sure Corbin was just going to come in here, give us some sort of lazy distraction DQ. I love the fact that we got a clean finish, and they put the champion over. Had the new guy lose, which I don't mind at all. Riddle loses nothing coming out of this. He went 50-50 with AJ Styles, and I know people are going to complain, he 50-50 gets nobody over, and blah, 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 blah. I think, in the end, Matt Riddle is firmly established here, and AJ Styles is due for, a win, to keep this belt looking strong.
Yeah, I think it ultimately will. They clearly are really behind Matt Riddle, so I don't think the loss is detrimental. I think whenever you look at these guys, who has the most upside, that you just don't want this guy 6 months to be kind of just blending in with the pack. I think that's a major problem with so many that just kind of blend in, and that's why we have such a shortage of stars. But I think they were certainly trying to put all the attention on Riddle, and the announcers went overboard trying to put over his performance afterwards. Riddle was disappointed, and then Styles reluctantly offers his hand. They shake hands, and then immediately King Corbin attacks him from behind as AJ just exits. So, it keeps Styles in this heel role because he's not helping Matt. And Corbin just beats the hell out of him and leaves him laying after end of days. So that is our program, Riddle and Corbin.
See, I initially kind of interpreted it as AJ deliberately giving the handshake just to distract Riddle for the Baron Corbin attack.
That's probably how it'll be explained. Yeah, I can see that.
Could be. Or it could be, a sign that AJ is reconsidering and potentially turning babyface, which might be possible too. Either of which would be interesting.
This was certainly an improvement over last week's SmackDown, I thought, overall.
Yes, completely agree. Last week's show was terrible. I would say this one was pretty average. There was nothing offensive, nothing all that bad on the show, but a lot of it, to me, didn't make that big of an impression. But I thought the main event was satisfying between Styles and Riddle. It elevated the show to being slightly above average, I thought.
I think that's fair. I don't think it was changing your interest level in Extreme Rules on Sunday, unless you really want to get into Braun's psyche.
Yeah, I do.
Can he end this man?
Of course I do.
Not just beat him, destroy him, eliminate him.
Phone lines are open, everybody. We're going to try those out. And we only have one line, of course, so do try to keep calling in if you can, and we will try to get to you. But first, we go to the feedback thread in the forum.
Well, tonight's show, it does get a pass on the forum. They voted and gave this a 5.75. So we can start off here, and Wai, just interrupt if we get any calls.
Sure.
But Paul from New Jersey writes, I thought the opening lead-in with insert promos was a good idea. John Morrison has been an unsung hero on both SmackDown, in-ring, and through his promos. That being said, Alexa watched Seth's awful promo from Monday night and said, hold my coffee. The PC crowd knew this was bad and started having fun with it. I give the borderline apoplectic chimney sweep Nikki Cross and Bayley credit. They were both good tonight. Morrison meekly said he couldn't feel his fingers, which was immediately followed by Lacey Evans' air raid horn. WWE has funny transitions sometimes. Good main event. Couldn't do any worse than last week. 5 out of 10.
I did not notice that Morrison line.
Yeah, he was like teasing the numbness and like, stretching out his hand. So they were definitely teasing that he had like a stinger or something.
Wow, so like a tease of a very significant injury, and it seems like a serious turn for Miz and Morrison right now.
Yeah, and I mean they did like the stretcher came out, but Morrison left like with Miz's help. So it was almost it kind of put Morrison in kind of this babyface positioning.
Interesting. All right, we go to Alex from Portland, who says, this show drew attention to Matt Riddle's shoelessness so many times. I hope it's never brought up again.
Oh, dude.
This show featured a lot that I really liked. The opening segment with everyone going over their goals and motives, a strong main event, and build towards the pay-per-view. Braun looked like the most aggressive I've seen. This side of Braun should be what the character is instead of the fun guy that tagged with Otis and did the Caterpillar. Morrison sold amazingly. He's so underutilized in a tag team. Lacey looked great tonight too. The SmackDown Women's Division seems to be heavy on the face side, so Lacey turning heel might work out. Question, who do you see being AJ Styles' opponent at SummerSlam? Considering the talent that hasn't been on TV for a bit, there isn't anyone besides Riddle that looks like a good contender. Probably Bryan.
If he's back in time. I did go back and look that when he did that interview earlier this year, he said that when Brie is having the baby, he is going to take a 6-week paternity leave. So whether those 6 weeks have already begun or we'll see if he's back from Summer. If he's back by SummerSlam, he makes the most sense for the opponent. If it's not Bryan, is there anyone else on the show that you can see slotting into there? And I'm going to throw out a name that if he's back, it sounds ridiculous, but I could totally see just needing a program with a heel, and that's Otis.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think that's ridiculous at all.
I could see AJ and Otis like that. They need something for Otis because he is. He's been off TV for this whole period and wasn't back tonight.
Yeah, but if we're talking rank, I think that's a match that actually makes a lot of sense.
Like there aren't that many baby faces to choose from, and you need someone prominent, and Otis is higher up the ladder than most on SmackDown.
Mm-hmm.
We go to John Cena. Big Show and Randy Orton first shared a ring together in 2005 at the Survivor Series. So maybe that's how it's 15 years in the making. Is that possible that they were on different brands that entire time?
I don't know.
Maybe. Maybe. Orton was brought up on SmackDown and then was pretty much on Raw with like Evolution. Maybe that's possible, but they've met so many times since. But anyway, it's a very puzzling math that we shouldn't be diving too much deeper into.
So is that when they first became friends? Is that what they're trying to establish? And this is like, it
was such a clearly defined friendship in 2005, the Big Show Randy Orton alliance.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Question for Slammiversary. Since it's a tease that it's 3 men possibly appearing and Gallows and Anderson are pretty much confirmed, is Kenta contractually able to appear and possibly even winning the Impact title? With him being stuck here in the U.S., maybe a deal could be worked out where he can wrestle for Impact, and then when the borders open back up, he goes back to Japan with Gallows and Anderson. Just a thought, and would get Impact some buzz. I would not expect that one. It sounds like, with Gallows and Anderson, like they very likely will have a deal where they can do New Japan and Impact. And it would really represent the first time that, talent is going to be working Impact and New Japan, because there has been really no desire on New Japan's part to do anything with Impact. I'd be very surprised to see Kenta in that role. Can't say 100% no, but that one would surprise me if he showed up tomorrow.
Yeah, it would surprise me too. I mean, it's one thing for guys when they're negotiating the contracts at the beginning to, have a deal like that. But I think it's another for somebody who already has a contract with New Japan trying to get that same deal. I think it's more likely you have somebody who was part of this group of WWE releases, perhaps an EC3, perhaps, I don't know, Heath Slater, something like that.
Given the videos that they've put out and the shots of different talent, like they've included Sting, Kurt Angle, and to me, it's like of the names that were released in April, I do think to deliver, you have to go above that, because I don't know if anyone
above Sting and Kurt Angle,
not necessarily above Kurt Angle or Sting, but I think that of the names that were released in April, I don't think there's anyone on that list that showing up is going to be satisfying for what the expectation has been put at for the audience.
Yeah, we'll see. I will say, like, somebody like an EC3, I think makes a big, like, is a far bigger deal going back to Impact than he would be anywhere else.
That's the best place for EC3.
Yeah, and as far as a return goes, like if you're an Impact viewer, I don't know if you would be completely satisfied, but I think you would be satisfied. If he made his way into that title match, for instance.
With all those WWE releases, they're ones where if they show up tomorrow, it's going to be like 6 months from now. Do you look back and it's like, wow, they handled this person so much better. Like if a Zack Ryder shows up, I don't think that's going to spur on a huge moment on Saturday. Oh my God, Zack Ryder's here. But if a year from now they do something great with Zack Ryder, then they'll look at, hey, Impact handled this guy a lot better than WWE did. But, they're really pushing this, that it's like the tagline is our world changes forever. So when you're putting out that grandiose a tease, you're naturally going to set people's expectation level very, very high.
For sure. Yeah, we'll see. All right, we got a Phil from West by God, Virginia. Can't make the chat this evening, but I was wondering your thoughts on this. Once live events and pay-per-views get going again, do you guys think that cinematic matches will 1. Disappear completely, 2. Still happen every now and again at pay-per-views, or 3. Be done as some kind of network special event that they do separate from pay-per-views?
I don't see them disappearing completely. I would lean towards option 2 of still happening now and again, although the third option of driving people to the network for these kinds of things, I think it does kind of work in that environment, but I would see them wanting to like embed it into like a pay-per-view presentation. So
yeah,
I'd go with 2, that I wouldn't expect them to be a monthly occurrence like we're getting now, but I have a hard time imagining they'll drop these cold turkey once crowds are back.
I do too. I think they are an enjoyable portion of the show, much in the same way like Final Deletion was a featured thing on Impact. And, I guess granted, like they taped their shows differently, but I feel at this point, if you're talking about something on the level like of a Boneyard match, you're going to have a lot of people who like will want to watch that in a crowd setting. That's my prediction. Let's say like they promote the Boneyard match too. If you aired that on a screen live in attendance at WrestleMania, I don't think you will get any people complaining live, because it's like watching like a movie in a movie theater with a bunch of people. If it's bad, you might get complaints, but I think if there's a good level of buzz attached to a cinematic match, watching it with friends all around you can be a very enjoyable experience. We go to our phones, and our first call for this portion of the show, Hanzib, if you are there, please unmute yourself.
What's going on, guys?
Hey, Hanzi.
Listen, I just gotta say that this week I enjoyed SmackDown a lot better than I think it started. It was a throwback to the Saturday Night Main Event intros that I like. They did that in the modern days Saturday Night Main Events in 2006. I thought that intro was kind of cool, and I just the question I have though, do you guys feel like the criticism that we used to have with uh, Impact was that they would always build to pay-per-views and not and no, not build to pay-per-views but build to television. Do you feel like
Mhm.
WWE is going in that route, like, because it seems like with like I would assume they would have just put Orton and Big Show on the pay-per-view, and as well as AJ Styles versus Riddle. But so, do you think that, like, to persuade ratings a little bit, they're building up these big matches, and do you think it'll actually do anything or not?
I think that it's very clear right now that the priority is their television numbers more so than, I mean, it's not like 10 years ago where your pay-per-view revenue was so key to your finances. I think that, like, let's just say the network number, how much has it really fluctuated from last month from Backlash? I think probably very minimal. And is anyone, if we were to put Randy Orton and Big Show on Sunday as opposed to Monday, how many people are signing up for the network for that specific match? I think it would be negligible, whatever that number is. So I think they're looking at, we can do both. Like, we're maintaining whatever the number is, it's not being affected by moving these matches to TV. It's the audience that wants to see Seth Rollins lose an eye or whatever your appeal is for Extreme Rules. It's there. That audience is getting that show, and we want to focus on our television, which is a major part of their business, is their television. And, 1 week is not make or break for them, but I think they want to curb the downward trend that they have seen. And, that's between tonight's main event, between Monday, and now putting Sheamus and Jeff Hardy next week. I think they believe that they can do both, that they can drive people to Sunday and also try and curb these television numbers. So, I mean, I don't fault them for trying this.
No, I hear you. I hear you. And before I go, I'll take your answer off the air. But do you guys predict at any point, like, if the ratings keep going down, do you think at some point AEW and Raw are gonna be like head to head kind of in a way, or do you think that they'll bounce back? And I'll take your answer off the air. Thank you.
I don't see them being close in any time. Like, as much as Raw has dropped, I mean, they are just still. I mean, in the demo number, I mean, that might be like this week, Raw did a 0.48 and AEW did a 0.40. So it's not like they're in completely different leagues when it comes to the demo number. And there's weeks, the 18 to 34 number has been close. Viewership wise, I think Raw is significantly, like, even at their lowest as they were this past Monday. I mean, you're still significantly ahead of AEW. But
what if there's no NXT?
If there's no NXT, I think that you would certainly. I think AEW would benefit from that, but not to the degree that they would be, to me, neck and neck with Raw. I still feel like there is a difference there. But a huge part that we've talked about is that where is. I mean, Raw and AEW, where are their numbers going to be once all these sports are coming back, and what the Monday and Wednesday night lineups respectively are going to be? And one thing AEW doesn't have to worry about is Monday Night Football when it comes. And that's a factor on Raw's ratings.
Mm-hmm. All right, Muggin, you are on the phone. Please unmute yourself. You're on Rewind-A-SmackDown.
Hi, guys. How's it going?
Hey,
it's going well.
Good. Anyway, going about the main event between AJ Styles and Matt Riddle. I mean, it's good. It's good to see AJ, get the win back. I mean, I know 50-50 book is kind of like an iffy thing when it comes to main roster programming. Looking ahead, do you think they'll do a third match, possibly at SummerSlam, with possibly Daniel Bryan in the mix? Because clearly that story isn't over.
Yeah, it's a possibility. Like, I really hope Riddle and Corbin is not a case of riding this out for another month. I think that's a TV match.
Yeah, I do think Riddle versus Corbin should be like a one and done, because I mean, like an extended feud with Corbin doesn't do anybody any favors. I mean, look what happened to Seth anyway. It didn't work for him.
Something tells me they are going to drag this thing out to SummerSlam. You know, the fact that they've been like having it build for so long, ever since like Matt Riddle's first match. Something tells me they're not just going to have him, you know, peak to like a 2-week build for a TV match and then just say goodbye.
Do you see it like going to like a paper? Do you see this going to SummerSlam?
I think it's very possible.
Versus Riddle?
Yeah.
Okay, I think maybe you know Styles and Riddle, the third match should happen in the fall probably. That is if he hangs on to the Intercontinental Championship.
Yeah. I mean, like, you know, at some point, I think AJ Styles is destined for a babyface turn again, and that'll definitely like freshen up that match. You know, whenever either of them switches roles.
I see. And looking ahead to Sunday, I mean, what match do you think will close the show?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, it's been debated throughout this entire time. Certainly, the match that they're promoting the most is that eye for an eye match. So I could definitely see that being the front runner. Personally, my most interest, I have the most interest in seeing Sasha Banks versus Asuka. And,
Me too. Me too.
I would love to see that one headline.
Yeah, possibly. And hopefully the post match angle will probably give a huge clue to what's going to happen at SummerSlam, because the hot streak Sasha Banks has been on over the last month has been really pleasing.
What do you think will happen?
I'm thinking Asuka will retain, because, you know, as fun as it is to see like a female version of the two-man power trip from 2001, mm-hmm. as enticing as that sounds, I think it'll just like pull the rug out from Asuka, who's been doing amazing work in this anti-arena era. So
yeah,
I would think Asuka will retain, and we finally pull the trigger on Sasha Banks going against Bayley, because as fun, they really need to pull the trigger on that.
I agree. Thank you so much for the call, Megan. Please call back again next week.
Thank you.
One more piece of feedback here from Kevin, who says, "Hi, John and Wai. AJ versus Matt Riddle was a great match, but I really hate how many bros we have to put up with. I'm scared they're going to give Matt a brocast. I see Nikki losing Sunday, and Alexa turns on her after the match. Alexa is a better heel, and I think her and Nikki would be a fresh feud. It allows you to lengthen the Sasha Bayley feud turn longer. You could maybe do Shayna versus Bayley, perhaps for SummerSlam."
Yeah, I mean, it's an option. I don't know. I think that would ultimately depend on where you're going in the immediate aftermath with Bayley and Sasha Banks, because I wouldn't want to have like two very similar stories, and Alexa and Nikki kind of comes out of nowhere, whereas the other has been, you know, teased for so long that one almost feels like it's the dress rehearsal for the real storyline. That I just want to space those out if you were going to do that turn. Like Alexa and Nikki now, they have been paired together for a year.
Mm-hmm.
It would feel very abrupt to just come out of nowhere and Alexa turns on her.
Would it though?
I feel to do it just coming out of this
Turns
Sunday.
are always abrupt.
Well, I don't know. Like again, if you're doing like such a similar story with Bayley and Sasha on the same show, I just feel like it's just kind of crossing over from one to the other too much.
I get the sense like Bayley and Sasha are going to stay together for a while longer. I mean, as tag champions, I think they still have. They've been on fire, and I think there's still plenty of life in this like tag team run. So much so that I could see them delaying the inevitable, you know, match between the two, either for a bigger or a later show like Survivor Series or the Rumble or maybe even WrestleMania.
Well, if that's the case, then have Alexa clock her on Sunday.
Yeah, one of them I think can turn on the other, and it could not be either Nikki or Alexa.
Well, let's go into the card for Sunday, which is one less bar fight in terms of the completed card. We start off with the tables match for the SmackDown tag titles. Wai, this has been a feud that has been greatly enhanced by your commentary. The New Day versus Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura. It finally happens Sunday night.
I'm just like, all the wrestlers are so good in this division. Okay, we're talking the Big E and Kofi, who are fantastic. Cesaro and Nakamura, who are amazing. I guess when the Usos were attached to it, they were fantastic. But God, like the lack of storytelling and the lack of just, I don't give a shit who wins. Like it just, these belts mean nothing. It's just like, okay, Cesaro and Nakamura win the tag team championships. Like, who cares, right? So I think there's a way bigger problem than, match quality and who the participants are. And that's just like good story. That's, I don't know, something a bit fresh. And you could definitely, like, this feels like it's a kickoff match. I'm sure it'll be great. And
we don't know what's on the kickoff. They haven't announced what's on the kickoff.
It might be one of these, or just it might be another random match. But anyway, I see Cesaro and Nakamura winning. Sure, whatever.
I could see a title change as well. Yeah, with Cesaro and Nakamura. Apollo Crews and MVP for the United States title. I think everyone is expecting Apollo to retain here. It just feels like a placeholder, and Bobby Lashley being the real program.
Yeah. I mean, I'm actually looking forward to this one. I think MVP, of course, has been such a valuable man, the most valuable. On Raw and
the MVP.
Yes, exactly, living up to his name, and I think guys like Cruz are gaining a lot from his association with him. But he's not just a guy on the mic; he's actually been pretty decent in ring too. And I think this will be a big match for MVP. And I look forward to seeing what he can do with a guy as good as Apollo Crews. But surely this will be, stepping stone to the Lashley program.
Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt in the Wyatt Swamp Fight. I don't know how you win a Wyatt Swamp Fight. I don't think you're necessarily going to get a winner and a loser here. I think it's going to be, maybe Bray drowns, and then he'll be reincarnated as the Fiend maybe they'll keep him off TV for a week.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah. I would have to assume you drown, right? How else would you win a swamp fight?
Alligator eating.
So let's think about this. A boneyard match, you get buried. That's how that match ended. I mean, it's got to end with somebody falling into something and being unable to get back.
Like someone's got to take the plunge into the swamp, right?
Of course, yeah. And it'll likely be.
What's your expectation level of the entertainment value that the Wyatt Swamp Fight will provide? And are you going in with high expectations?
I definitely think like you have something that can potentially be closer to what we saw with the Boneyard match than say, something closer to the Viking Raiders and, Street Profits or even the Money in the Bank as far as cinematic matches go. So in that sense, I actually have like, somewhat high expectations, even though I haven't been a great fan of the feud, I think this will be really a chance for these types of matches to shine. And we're talking about, they've had plenty of goes now with these cinematic matches that I think they should have probably learned plenty of lessons by this point of what works and what doesn't work. This will be another stab at it, and I think hopefully Bray Wyatt will have a great deal of creative input into it, and I expect.
And it has the benefit of being edited. Like it's it should be good because you can control it.
Yeah, well, I mean Again, I hate to harp on that Viking Raiders Street Profits thing, but there's plenty of editing in that one too.
Bayley and Nikki Cross for the SmackDown Women's title. I kind of like that storyline idea of Nikki losing, and that kind of sends her into this darkness. And I mean, it gives something for Alexa to do because Alexa has sort of just been existing. And it gives her a program, at least with Nikki Cross potentially.
Yeah, after doing this podcast with you, I'm suddenly way more interested in the outcome of this match than heading into it.
Save the big angle for the Go Home podcast.
Exactly. The potential for storytelling for Nikki Cross coming out of this, I think, will be great. And all signs, I would say, point to her losing this match to build to that story, and Bayley going on to doing whatever she's going to do with Sasha.
Asuka, Sasha Banks for the Raw Women's title. I think this has every right to be match of the night. I think this will be really great. Probably get 20 minutes. This should be really, really strong, and I think you can make the argument of either going over as well.
As far as like, on in ring on paper, this is like the only match I can honestly say I'm looking forward to. Like Rey Mysterio, Seth Rollins in ring, I think will be a great match. But God, like it makes it like that's going to be more of a stunt show and more of a spectacle than anything. We're talking.
I think it'll be hard for people at home to even get into it because everyone's just focused on how they do this thing at the end that to me that completely overshadows any of the work beforehand because on its own, I mean that would probably be a fantastic match, but I don't think anyone's going to be focused on the match. It's only the stipulation.
Yeah, absolutely. And Asuka and Sasha, to me, they're both having some of the best. I think Sasha is like might be entering her prime, like of at least her main roster run. I think she's been on fire as just a personality, and I would say the same for Asuka. This period does feel like it might be the highlight of her main roster run, and you have both of these two meeting at the very same time. I think the two biggest personalities in the women's division on either show right now on the show. So in ring, their chemistry appears to have been excellent. Anytime they've met each other in a tag team situation this month, I'm really looking forward to this match, but I do see Asuka retaining.
Could you see Asuka and Kairi at SummerSlam?
Well, Asuka's been talking about it plenty in interviews, and absolutely. I mean, if this is Kairi's last run, I think they're going to try to pair her with all the dream opponents, and I would say the main one and the best one to go out with would probably be her tag team partner.
I think that's what they should do for SummerSlam on the Raw side. Drew McIntyre, Dolph Ziggler, stipulation to be determined for the WWE title. If you open your freezer, that's the heat that this match has.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, this stipulation better be pretty damn good, and I will fully eat my words if Dolph comes out, set of boxing gloves, brawl for all. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Sign
okay.
me right up.
This is a title match that I'd be totally happy with if they did the Heath Slater treatment and he just kills this guy in 10 seconds. There would be no complaints from me.
Who kills who? Like Drew kills Dolph.
Drew kills Dolph.
Right. Me neither. But I mean, wouldn't that be a bit of a letdown if Dolph announced some sort of stipulation?
Nope. Be fine with me.
Probably be some sort of blindfold match. I mean, obviously it'd be something that would favor Ziggler, right?
Literally, this main event segment would have more interest if it was promoted as Drew McIntyre announcing who his opponent would be at SummerSlam at Extreme Rules.
That's the stipulation.
I would be more intrigued by that than this. And the eye for an eye match. Rey Mysterio, Seth Rollins. I do believe this will close the show. And someone will lose an eye.
Yeah, man.
What more can be said?
The pandemic has certainly opened up new possibilities in the way you can do professional wrestling storytelling, and to see how they will end this match with human beings' eye being gouged out, I think is definitely one of the more interesting things about this pay-per-view. How far will they go into the special effects department to edit a scene like that into a match? We shall see. We shall see.
Well, we'll be the only ones.
That's right. Who's losing the eye?
Well, I think listen. In all seriousness, it'll be very telling who goes over here, because I would say if Rey is staying, he should be winning this. This should be the blow off. And if he's leaving, then this is the way to write him off, literally.
So you're saying this will possibly be, it could possibly be Rey Mysterio's last appearance on a WWE television show. And the way they're going to have him ride off into the sunset will be to blind him permanently.
And then they will have to put his face on the video screen when he goes into the Hall of Fame, and then he'll open his eyes like the Undertaker, and his sight is back to explain his Hall of Fame induction.
Well, an eye is going to be ripped out of the dude's socket, so how are you going to explain that?
Are you familiar with this technology that Rey has done with stem cells?
Stem cell a whole eye?
With bioaccelerator? They can do remarkable things. The eyes are just another element of the human body that can be restored. Just takes time. That's all.
Did not know that. Wow. Okay. Well, then in that case, they could do anything. But I do feel like whether or not Rey Mysterio stays, I think Seth Rollins will look pretty badass with an eye patch. So maybe he's going to lose.
It fits the character that he would have an eye patch, and it would really
completes the look. Yeah.
It kind of completes the look, and fully transitions Seth Rollins. Maybe going as a pirate is the way to go. It's very possible. There's also, if the idea would be that Rey is leaving, I think WWE should really think about this, because if you blind this man completely on his way out, you have given Being the Elite carte blanche to have some of their finest comedy in setting up Rey's eventual arrival.
Oh my, yeah. Coming in, maybe like he should come in a tag team match that advertises like a mystery opponent, and then Rey shows up and it's a blind tag.
Just think of the promo spots where it's going to be like eyes flickering on the screen, and then it just changes to 2020, coming in 2020.
Incredible. Well, they should do that, clearly.
The creative writes itself. I'm not all that interested in this pay-per-view at all on Sunday. I think that there's a morbid curiosity for the eye for an eye match. And I would say the Wyatt Swamp fight, I think that's what they're going for. Like, morbid curiosity is the hook of this show.
Yeah.
And Asuka Sasha Banks, which, one match is not, I think grabbing people's attention, but maybe the collective whole of everything that's being thrown against the wall on this pay-per-view is enough to entice people. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't feel to me like a presents something just masterful on Sunday night.
Yes. Yeah, we're talking a B-level show, and you know what? I will say I feel like I have more interest in this particular Extreme Rules than perhaps previous years, and it's like I can't even remember what some of these previous ones are, but like some of these older Extreme Rules are just like these matches with like stairs and all that shit. And I would say this year they're being a bit more versatile, a bit more creative. So that's a positive.
Well, versatile is a word we can definitely apply to some of these match ideas. The last question on this, okay? 7 p.m. start time. We've got 7 matches, which, believe me, big draw for me when we've got 7 matches. What time does this show go? What time will we be going live on Sunday night? Will it be before or after 10:30?
Oh, okay. I'm gonna say 10:30. I'm gonna say before. I'm gonna say right on the dot. We're gonna go live at 10:30.
Like if this wraps up by 10, which if it's 7 matches, it should wrap up by 10. I think 10:15 at the latest.
I think we've seen like from previous pay-per-views recently that they're not afraid to just end things, whenever they feel right to be ended. There's no need to drag.
Money in the Bank was remarkably early. That had a big impact on my opinion on that show, was how early they got out of things. It didn't feel the need to just drag on.
They're not exactly in a position where they have the great ability to record as much as they can either. They're very limited right now with production. So I would say it would benefit everybody if I think they went a little bit shorter.
Well, you have some of these that are going to be filmed. So it's like with 7 matches and some filmed, you're already limiting the amount of people that you're going to need that day as well. So, there is actually a safety component to all of this as well, rather than those, like, I'll take a 7-match pay-per-view any day over some of those 14-match lineups that we were getting for some of these pay-per-views that were just... I just think that's such a hard way to present just an average WWE pay-per-view.
Give these poor NXtras some time to sit.
Yes. The last thing they need is a 5-hour pay-per-view.
Yeah. Last thing, did you catch the Edge day of?
Haven't caught it yet.
Well, it's very short. It's only 15 minutes, and it basically is just some footage following him on the day of the greatest match ever, and I think if you've heard Edge in interviews, you kind of know the sense of how he's taking this greatest match ever thing. He's not taking it seriously. In fact, he sees it as a handicap, and he even says so in this documentary where he says he told Vince that it's like he's put him on, like, he's set him to climb Mount Everest without safety gear or safety or a grappling hook or a rappel line or whatever you used.
He's like that analogy. He's used it a few times,
Okay.
but that's what you do when you have to do the media rounds.
Yeah, so he said that. What I found most interesting about it was, it takes you behind the scenes. It shows you the preparation of him entering the room. He talks about how weird it is to not have a crowd, but then after the fact, he goes back to the back, and I would say much of his reaction was about how much the NXtras really helped. And I guess that was like one of the earlier matches where you had that people like NXtras in the crowd. So he was like pretty thrilled with all that. The tricep injury was not something that was really apparent to him until the MRI afterwards. I mean, he had a feeling and a sense that something was off by the end of the night, but I'm guessing perhaps the adrenaline was hiding a lot until the next day. And that was really it. Just a bit of a behind-the-scenes look. I mean, they don't go into, them shooting retakes or anything like that. He did briefly talk about the production of it. He says, it's going to have special lighting, and we're going to try new camera angles, and if it works, then we'll have new tools to work with. If it doesn't work, then we won't. And
yeah, and he said he had come up with that idea and said after the fact he didn't think the match needed them, but Vince loved them, and that's why they ended up in the match with those GoPros.
Oh, okay. So maybe we'll get more of them at some point.
Nothing makes a swamp fight more interesting than GoPros from the perspective of the alligator.
Yes.
Go strap this onto that alligator. She's a real alligator.
The possibilities are endless.
That's what these matches are. The possibilities are endless. But this show isn't, because we have reached our limit. So thank you to everybody for joining us. Again, Saturday night, a free show coming your way with myself, Nate Milton, and Davey Portman. It'll be out late Saturday night, recapping Slammiversary and whoever's showing up, whether it's Kenta or anybody else. And then Sunday, Wai and I will be live. I'm hoping by 10:30. That would be wonderful. Right after Extreme Rules, that show will be live for Double, Ice Cap, and Espresso members. We'll run through the pay-per-view, discuss a man losing his eye, potentially someone dying in a swamp, whatever other ideas come out of this show, and then taking your phone calls to get your reaction to Alligators and Eyes.
I think that'll be the highlight of my night. Hearing your thoughts.
I think so too. I want to get reaction from everybody. Just their, maybe everyone needs to have GoPros running so we can get all their live reactions to extractions.
Yeah.
Because we know we're going to get the live reaction from Davey Portman and Braden Harrington, who have just released about 85 shows over the last 48 hours, and they'll be back on Sunday night on the Up Next YouTube for their live watch-along of the horror show at Extreme Rules. Actually, it's only going to be Davey because I believe Braden will not be there. But Davey's going to have a lot of friends joining him.
Yeah. That should certainly be fun. And somehow Braden managed to get the night off. But you can check that out. Davey will also be joining you, John, and Nate Milton on the Slammiversary review tomorrow.
That's right. So tune into Slammiversary. I'm curious what the feedback is to Slammiversary. Is this a show that people are interested in seeing, or is it one where they're curious about who's showing up, but not enough to order the pay-per-view? I'm very curious to see what people's viewing habits are at present for Impact. So that will be, I'm sure, come up in the discussion with the three of us. So again, that'll be up Saturday night, postwrestling.com. Postwrestlingcafe.com is where you can go for all of your bonus shows, including this past week's Spider-Man Far From Home review that is up.
That is correct. And store.postwrestling.com, where you can get our brand new Marvel t-shirt, Marvel-inspired t-shirt featuring John and myself, designed by our friend Robert Pearson. Until Tuesday, all profits from the sales will go towards two great charities. So go to store.postwrestling.com, and if you're interested, grab a shirt.
Awesome stuff. So go check that out, and we will speak with you Saturday night after Slammiversary.